Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on We Should Talk About It, my podcast here with Dr. Stephen Taylor from UofL Health Peace Hospital. It is great to be with you guys today, and I am sorry. It has been a while since I've been with you with Dr. Taylor. So we are getting back on the bandwagon. We're starting a new school year, and we're going to get back on our podcast groove that we were in. So today we're talking about back to school anxiety. If you've got little ones, this can be helpful for you. Even if you're an older young adult going to college, this can be helpful for you. My kiddos started the school year this week, a new school, and new is the word I want to focus on. New school year, new classroom, new teachers, new friends, new routine. Even if you're going just back to the same school, new can be a little intimidating.
It can be intimidating for sure. Well, I mean, new could be going to a new kind of school. So, we're thinking about going to college, right? So leaving high school, starting college, completely different experience.
Oh, yeah. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I remember that. That was terrifying.
Sure. Yeah. Completely unnerving. Going from, I'm old enough that it was junior high, but going from middle school to high school, big transition. Going from elementary school to middle school, big changes, big transitions. So I think that, I was having this experience some time ago. I can't even remember what the context was, but I was seeing like a graduation ceremony from kindergarten. And I thought, really? It's just
it is a thing.
It's a huge thing.
Huge thing.
But as I think about it, it kind of makes sense to me because it is a big transition. It's a big deal for kids to go from kindergarten to first grade. And why not make a big mark of it? Why not make some notice that celebrate what you've done and mark that something very different and new is about to happen. And I think sometimes the transition is as much about sort of processing what we've done and maybe even grieving for the loss of it a little bit as it is anticipating something new.
You are leaving behind your teacher who you may have gotten so close with.
For sure.
Your classroom that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Right? So just a little bit of an adjustment. How do we as parents, Dr. Taylor, kind of embrace that feeling of nervousness or anxiety that our kids may be facing with this new year?
Right. I think some of it is just recognizing that it is a new experience for them. As we get older, we tend to forget how much of a change it was. And so we can easily forget it. We can just think, oh, stop being a kid and stop worrying about it. So I think it's important to acknowledge that it is a big deal for them and to be able to help them experience it by being able to tolerate the experience in ourselves. One of the things from a psychological standpoint that we all struggle with is tolerating how things can be different for ourselves, just like it is for kids, and that it's going to rekindle a lot of emotional states that we had when we were little, and we're going to feel it again. We're going to feel it just like our kids do. And if we can tolerate it, if we've processed it, if we've dealt with it in our own lives, it's easier to help our kids deal with it. If we really haven't ever dealt with it or haven't ever really processed it, then we're just going to shy away from it, tell the kid to stop worrying about it or just kind of blow it off. So I think it's important for us to be in touch with our own feelings about it and to remember what it felt like.
And if you're having a hard time remembering what it felt like, think about what it was like for you when you started a new job, started a new internship, when you're walking into a new environment. Those are probably the same somewhat feelings that your kids are facing.
Right. I think one of the biggest obstacles to change is stepping into something that we don't know away from something that we've been familiar with. I think it's one of the things that can be the cornerstone of why we stay in relationships that aren't healthy, or why we continue habits that aren't healthy, or why we continue doing things that aren't really good for us, as opposed to making a change. Because making a change means going into some area that we have no experience in. And that's a hard thing for us to do psychologically. We can be comfortable with a bad situation. That's a lot better in some ways than jumping into something we don't know. And that's what can make change a very difficult process for us. And, kids are kind of helpless in that. It's not like we're giving them a choice.
Yeah.
We're piling them in the car and taking them to the new school, and that's that. But we need to acknowledge and realize that it's a big change for them. It's a big different experience. And it's going into something that they have no knowledge of. They've never They don't know what's middle school. I mean, what's college?
Mhm.
You're not going to know what college is until you go.
Yeah.
So it's hard to make that first step and to realize that first step can be a very difficult and challenging thing.
And it's also, parents can feel nervous about it,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
My kid's going to a new school, the routine is new. Maybe you're having anxiety from, getting your kids to and from school. That's something a lot of parents are facing too in our area.
Right.
How do parents kind of recognize, okay, I'm feeling stress from all of this?
Right. Because I think it's two levels of experience for us as parents. The one level of the experience is our own anxiety for the kid and what they're going through, because we're in relationship with them. But the other part of it is our own anxiety about our own past experience being drawn back up and remembering what it was like for us in those big transitions. So we're kind of feeling both of those things as adults with our kids. It's their anxiety and it's ours.
Mm-hmm.
So it's both of those things.
How do we as parents, what are some signs that my kid is experiencing some anxiety? I know sometimes anxiety can be in the form of tummy ache. I don't feel well.
Right.
But then are you like, oh, do you have a virus? Are you sick? Is it a stomach bug? Or are you really feeling anxiety?
Right. I think that's right. I mean, noticing changes in them, that's one of the first things that we look for. Is their behavior different? Are they being, if your child is a more outgoing kiddo and then you find them kind of more isolated, staying to themselves, they're not talking to you much, they're not playing with their toys, you notice a real change in them. Those are indication that something is going on. Mm-hmm. So it can be more subtle than that sometimes. Maybe they're just not eating as much, or maybe they're not getting as much sleep, and that can be a little bit more subtle. So if we're really paying close attention, we can see those changes. That's usually an indicator that something psychological is going on with them.
Okay, so at what point do you step in and say, okay, you and I just need to have a conversation, or maybe we need to go talk to your doctor?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're noticing it is a time to ask them what's going on. I was thinking about the way we sometimes approach these issues. One of the ways we can do it sometimes is to say, hey, I've noticed you're doing X, Y, and Z, and can you say something about that? That can feel a little bit like you just got caught with your hand in the cookie jar, as opposed to you're observing something in your kids and you just simply ask them, what's it like for you right now? How are you feeling? And just make it open-ended and let them say or not say whatever they feel like they want to say.
Okay. I want to talk about this more because I just asked my son, hey, he shut me down immediately, like, nothing, mom, and got like all like just upset. And I was just like, I want to know,
Right.
How do we have that? How do I ask an open question? And as someone who asks questions for a living, I found it really hard to talk to my kid about, like, just talk to me.
Well, I mean, I think it can be hard. You can just say, hey, how are you? Are you okay? Mm-hmm. What's this like for you? And he may say, shut up, mom, I'm fine.
He better not say shut up, mom, because then that's a whole other conversation we're going to have.
Yeah, stop pestering me.
Yeah, like, leave me alone, it's fine.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You can say, I just want you to know. Just so you know, if you need to talk to me, I'm here.
Okay.
And be available.
You gave a little bit of a tease on, like, how to, not making them feel like they're caught in something. So how do we approach questions that get a response of more than yes or no?
Yeah. I mean, for me as a psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst, if I'm noticing a change or a behavior in a patient, I'm making a mental note of it, that it's something different. I'm seeing something that I don't usually see. And I just might ask them about the context. It might be about coming into the room, or it might be about starting a session or something. And I might just say something like, what's it like for you to come in here? Or I might say, what's it like to start talking? Mm-hmm. And I'm not so much pointing out the things that I'm seeing as I'm making a mental note of it. And I'm just asking them to say something about their experience. What's it like for you? And let them have the floor. And that can sometimes work. Now with kids, like you said, sometimes your son's going to say, "Leave me alone. I'm fine.
Can I go play video games?"
God, what's with all the questions? And I think in some ways, they do show the resistance, but I think on some levels too, they appreciate the fact that you care enough to ask.
True.
That is important to them. And I think it's important to say, "I'm here. You need me. I'm all ears. Grab me."
How, I think also having a conversation as a parent with your kids, a judgment-free zone, like, okay, tell me if something's wrong, tell me. I'm not going to get mad at you, is how sometimes I approach it, just, I would rather you talk to me than talk to someone who doesn't have your best interest in mind.
Right. Or even worse, just don't talk at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you can even set it up like, the kitchen table is judgment-free table. When we sit down at the kitchen table, we're free to talk openly, and that's the place where we're going to talk and say what we feel, and nobody's judging anybody. You can kind of create a real physical space where that's the rules. Some of those tropes like the talking stick. Whoever's got the stick gets to talk, and they can say whatever they want. Nobody's going to judge them,
and no one's going to interrupt them. Yeah,
right. Those kind of things work. They can feel a little bit like a trope, but they also do work.
Mm-hmm.
So you're creating a physical space where nobody's getting judged here.
Another question, and I don't know if you can address it, but I know sometimes kiddos feel like you're starting off the school year. Am I starting off the school year behind? The anxiety of homework, the anxiety of, I don't know how to do this. And I
forgot how to write.
I forgot how to write. I forgot how to spell. I didn't do this last year. And now this year they're expecting me to do this.
Or I spent the whole summer not reading a book. Now I don't know how to read anything.
Exactly. My son sat down to do a little bit of homework and broke down in tears. And I felt so bad because he was like, I don't know how to do this. And it was just like, I felt really bad for him. And I'm like, it's okay. We're going to figure it out. But like, how do we build up that confidence?
Yeah.
And then how do we,
we as adults experience this all the time. We kind of forget about it as we get older, but we do kind of experience it. You go on vacation and you come back and you look at your computer and think, how do I log into my computer?
What's my password?
What's my password? How do I use this program? What am I doing? That's just sort of a common feature of being us. I think if we recognize that we have that as adults, when we see it in our kids, it's easier to empathize with them and kind of give them space to be frustrated. But also we can encourage them and help them through. You can do this. You did it last year. You still know how to do this. And let me help you get yourself started. What do you need? And not get frustrated about it because it happens to us.
Yeah. I want to bounce back on a question. One of my lovely coworkers, who is also a mom of two, she wanted to know, at what point do you see a doctor or look into therapy or medication if you notice your child is experiencing anxiety? And also how to balance making your kids feel validated with their nervous feelings, but also helping them understand more logical and realistic outcomes.
Yeah.
Two good questions.
Yeah. A lot of good questions in there. Some of it's subjective. I don't know anybody's child as well as they know their own child. And so if their spidey senses are saying there's something wrong, I would say, listen to that. And it's better to err on the side of too much than too little.
Okay.
So if you feel like your kiddo is really struggling and you feel like you need to do something to intervene with it, then I would say follow that instinct and don't ignore it. We're much more likely to say, oh, it's fine, than we are to do something to intervene. It's just a thing, it'll pass. We're much more likely to do that than we are to err on the side of caution and say, this feels different, so I think I'm going to pursue some kind of help and see what happens. You can't go wrong doing that. And I don't think people are going to invent treatments just to be inventing a treatment if the kiddo is okay and doesn't need it. But yeah, if you ever feel like you need another pair of eyes looking over your shoulder, that feeling is something you should probably pay attention to.
Yeah. So if as a parent, I think is what Dr. Taylor is saying, something's not right, start having that conversation with your child. go to your child's doctor and then figure out, okay, what do we do next? You know, because this is not something unusual,
right?
That pediatricians or child psychiatrists see on a regular basis.
Exactly. I mean, they exist for a reason. You know, it's a pretty common thing. And that was the other thing was about validation. There was something about validation.
Yes. She wanted to know, how do you make your kids feel validated with their nervous feelings, but also helping them understand more logical, realistic outcomes?
Right. I mean, you know, everybody gets nervous. We all get nervous. It's part of being a human being.
Sure.
And to feel freaking out about going back to school, that's not an unusual feeling. You know, this is sort of a facet of just joining groups. If any of us as adults can think about any time we've joined a new group and think about the thoughts and feelings we have as we're joining a new group, I'll bet you almost everybody who's joined a new group has had this thought: I'm the only one in this group who's nervous, or I'm the only one in this group who's not prepared, or I'm the only one in this group who doesn't know what's going on. And everybody else in this group has got it all together. And if we ask the question, who in this group feels unprepared or who in this group feels nervous, probably everybody would raise their hand.
Sure.
You know, and if we think about kids going back to school, who's going back to school who feels nervous? Probably all of the kids do.
Yeah.
Now, they're all going to feel different about it, and they're all going to do different things to deal with it. But show me a kid going back to school that's not nervous.
Yeah, and as the kids are nervous, the parents are nervous, the teachers are nervous, the school bus driver is nervous.
Everybody's
a little nervous.
Everybody is. So that's one way to validate the kid. It's like, you know, you're in good company. Everybody's like this. You're going to go there and look at all your friends, and they're going to all look like they've got it all together, and they're going to all look like they've got the right lunchbox, and they're going to all look like they're wearing the right clothes, but they're all feeling exactly the same way.
So is it, you let them know, okay, the way you're feeling, it's normal.
It's normal.
And, you know, I felt this way before. So how do we move that conversation forward? Is it just letting them talk about it, or?
Yeah, letting them talk about it, and letting them own it and hold it and to feel like it's normal and not to feel shame about it. That's one of the things that can hold us back. If we load ourselves up with shame and guilt about feeling the way we do, as if we're the only ones feeling that way, then that can paralyze us.
Yeah.
But if we can realize, everybody feels like this, and we can move, then we can move. I mean, I think about like celebrity music stars, like I guess Taylor Swift is the thing now. This probably happens to Taylor. I've never met her.
You're so hip.
I am, right? And I am not a spokesperson for her life, but I'll bet you anything, before she walks out on a stage with 55,000 people listening to her, she probably feels nervous. I'll bet you anything she does. Now, somehow she gets herself up there, and I'll bet you anything when she starts doing her thing, it probably goes away. I'll bet, you know, as a television personality, before the cameras come on and start shooting the show, you probably feel nervous.
I felt nervous many times.
Yeah. But I suspect that once it gets going and once you get into the groove, it kind of goes away.
Yeah, absolutely.
You stop feeling it. And that would be the other thing I would say to the kiddos. Yeah, you're going to feel nervous but I'll bet you anything, when you get there, you see your friends or you get into class and start doing your work, it'll probably go away.
So it's about time.
Yeah,
it's just about time and getting comfortable.
Right.
It takes some time.
Yeah, if you can tolerate it now, it's going to go away.
Okay. Let's talk about, by the way, I want to mention, if you have a question for Dr. Taylor, please put it here in the feed, and I'll definitely try to pay attention and look over and get your question answered. For college kids, a lot of kids are going back to college or starting college. That's a big adjustment. You're moving away from home.
Right.
You're independent.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of things can go right. A lot of things can go wrong.
Yep. Yeah. There's a lot. Moving to college is a big deal. And part of it is the structure of it. You know, when we go through our life as students until we get to college, everything is kind of laid out for us. It's kind of scripted, how much work we're supposed to do, when we're supposed to do it, when things are due. All those things are kind of lined up for us. Now, the pandemic messed with that some, but for the most part, we didn't have to think about any of that. But when we get to college, nobody cares if you study or not. Nobody cares when you study. Nobody cares if you go to class or not. All of a sudden, it's on you to do that, So you become the one responsible for keeping the structure that used to be kept for you when you were in other levels of education. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that college students have to adjust to, is being the ones responsible for organizing and doing all that. Some kids, that is not an issue for them. But for some kids, that really becomes a big deal to be the ones that have to be responsible for that.
And that can lead to a lot of nervousness. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do laundry. I don't know how to
Well, it can lead to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, because you're by yourself.
You're alone.
You're
and
alone.
Nobody's looking over your shoulder. So you can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And that can, for some people,
be another problem.
That can be another problem. That's right.
So what do you do about that?
Well, I think the main thing is to be aware of it and to know what kind of person you are. Are you the kind of person that thrives on being organized and taking care of business on your own? Then it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. If you know you're the kind of person that really relies on other people to organize things for you, it's important to know that so that you can be on guard for the pitfalls of falling behind.
So then, as a parent of a child who, say, doesn't have it together, for lack of a better way to say it, do I hover over my kid when they're in college?
Well, I wouldn't hover over them, but I would encourage them to recognize that this is their thing and they need to pay attention to it.
You're a big boy, big girl now.
Yeah,
you got to do it.
Right. You are encouraging them to do it.
Yeah.
You got to keep track of your syllabuses. You got to keep track of your work. You got to keep track of your class schedule. You've got to know when you've got to get up and go to class, and just be aware of that. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'm just wanting to let you know that you need to be aware of it.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else, Dr. Taylor? Let's one more time just talk about the signs and the symptoms of maybe your child is not doing well. Anxiety is getting too much for them. Their mental health needs some attention.
Yeah.
What should they look out for?
The main thing is changes in their personality, changes in what they do. Their routines change. Their behavior changes. When we see those things, that's when we start to think something's going on and maybe we need to talk about it. But if they're, but if it looks like it's just kind of the normal state, they're a little nervous, but they're still playing. They're a little nervous, but they're eating. They're a little nervous, but they're still sleeping. They're a little nervous, but they're not snipping at me every time I say something. Then, they're just normal kids having a normal experience of going back to school.
Yeah. I think for me as a parent, and maybe you're facing this at home, by the time you get your kids out the door in the morning rush, you get home, they've got homework, they've had athletics, you get home from work. And like for me, I get home by 7 p.m., which leaves me an hour to, make sure that they've had, make dinner and do it. I feel like as a parent, I am out of time and most nights I don't sit down until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And then I'm beat. And then it's like, as parents, there's just not enough time.
Yeah. That is a real problem. And that is not one with an easy solution, to be sure. But I think we also need to recognize that we do have limits. And we need to pay attention to that.
I hit my limit on a daily basis. But, I know that a lot of parents we feel this way. Like I've got to give you something healthy to eat. I've got to make sure your homework is correct. Did you take a shower? Like all these things, like when you get off of work, your daily routine job, your job does not end when you walk out the building. You got a whole other job to do.
That's right.
Are you getting picked up from school? Who's picking you up? Schedules. It is a lot that we juggle.
It is a lot. Yes, I acknowledge that. That is for sure a lot. And, that's also sort of brings up the point too, as a parent, your own mental health is important and you being healthy matters, and taking care of you is a way of taking care of everybody else too. Yeah. We can sometimes feel like we're being selfish if we're spending time working on ourselves and like we're taking away from the people around us. But if you're not working on yourself and taking care of yourself, you're not helping the people around you.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm kind of going through that too myself right now. Like I want to get back into exercise. Well, I could do a load of laundry. I could put those dishes away. I could, do all those things. So you get you feel bad that you haven't done all those other things, but hey, what about me, my health and my mental well-being?
Yeah.
And it is
it can be hard to do that. I have a friend that talks about the in between. He calls the things that he likes to do the in between.
Okay.
So if he's always got his little things to do with him, so that if there's a moment here, he can pay attention to it. If there's a break between other things that are scheduled, he's got his in between when he can do his thing.
And that's okay.
Yeah, and that's okay. I was thinking about the exercise thing, Can it be in between loads of laundry?
It could be carrying the basket. Yeah, it could be.
Right. So the in between, that's the kind of a thing that I've been hanging on to.
Yeah, that's I think, and another thing, I think offering being cognizant of other parents, like knowing what they are probably going through. Like,
right.
Hey, I know you're probably tired. You've been ripping and running, and it's only 11:10 today, and you've probably done, I don't know, let's see, 5,842 steps today. So it's just understanding and being compassionate to your fellow coworker, your neighbor, your family member, and saying, you know what, I know that your kids are going through a lot, and you are going through a lot right now, and what can we do to help?
Well, the thing that when you were saying about like doing the steps, the word that popped into my mind was time. And, our healthy living and healthy lifestyle is not something that has to all happen right this second, but it is over time. It's the way we direct ourselves over time. I am going to eat fast food. I'm not going to say that I never will, but that's not going to be the only thing that I eat.
Yeah.
So over time, hopefully my diet mostly is going to be healthy, but there are going to be times when I'm going to eat a hot dog from a food truck. That's just going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm not living my entire healthy life in that one moment.
Yeah.
That's not the make or break, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, now that we are, I know this podcast lives on, but, take the weekend to sit down and talk with your kids, recap. How was the week?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. What
be curious about them.
What you didn't like. I think sometimes we think they don't want to be bothered, but maybe, as you mentioned, they'll appreciate the fact that you ask.
That you asked. Yeah. That they want you to be curious.
Yeah.
They may tell you they don't. But, it means a lot to them that you're curious about what's going on with them. And
it means my kids, I will brag on them for a second. They asked me how my day was. Mom, who did you interview today? What was your podcast about? And I love it when they ask me, because it makes me feel
of course.
important. It makes me feel like they care. And I hope that they feel that
they're paying attention to you.
They're paying attention.
Yeah, that matters.
Other times it may not.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Dr. Taylor, anything that I didn't ask you?
Well, I think, we've talked about a lot, but I think the important thing is just to make sure we're listening to each other. We keep talking and noticing things. If you notice things that are going on with your kiddos, pay attention to it and be curious. Okay.
One more thing that just popped into my mind we were talking about, the anxiety. I know for a lot of folks, we mentioned it a little bit, the transportation, it's stressing me out. Is this something like, okay, this too shall pass. It will eventually get better.
Yeah.
It sucks right now, but it'll get better.
Well, that's the thing. I think one of the things that happens to us with anxiety states is we assume that the way I feel now is the way it's always going to be. Kind of going back to my music stars walking out on stage. They feel anxious before they walk out on stage, but it doesn't stay that way. Once they get going, they're in the groove doing their thing, and the anxiety is going to dissolve away. You'll hear most of them all say that. And that's true for all of us in our states of anxiety. It may feel miserable right now, but it is going to pass. It will go away. It's not going to be this way forever.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us. I'm Myra Ansari with Dr. Stephen Taylor for We Should Talk About It. I hope you and your kiddos have a wonderful school year. Have a great day.